The grand chandelier cast dancing shadows across the marble floors of the Ashworth mansion as another evening of forced socializing began. Vincent Ashworth stood at the edge of the opulent ballroom, his steel-gray eyes surveying the crowd of wealthy guests with barely concealed irritation. At 32, he had built a tech empire worth billions. But tonight, he felt more trapped than ever before. "Vincent, darling, come here this instant." His mother Catherine's voice cut through the classical music like a knife. She stood beside the Sterling family, her perfectly manicured hand beckoning him forward with an authority that still made his jaw clench. Alina Morales moved silently through the crowd, balancing a silver tray of champagne glasses with practiced grace. She had worked as the head house manager for the Ashworth family for 3 years, and she knew how to become invisible during these grand events. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun. Her simple black uniform helped her blend into the background of luxury she could never afford. "Mother, I'm busy," Vincent replied curtly, not moving from his position near the terrace doors. He watched Alina refill glasses with efficient movements, noticing for perhaps the 100th time how she carried herself with quiet dignity, despite the way some guests treated her like furniture. Catherine's laugh was sharp and calculating. "Nonsense. The Sterlings are here, and Sophia looks absolutely radiant tonight. You two have so much to discuss about your future together." Vincent's blood ran cold. He had heard whispers about his mother's matchmaking schemes, but he thought he had made his position clear months ago. Marriage for business gain was not something he would ever consider, no matter how much it might benefit Ashworth Technologies. Richard Sterling, a man whose smile never reached his eyes, stepped forward with his daughter Sophia. She was undeniably beautiful. Perfectly styled blonde hair and a designer dress that probably cost more than most people's cars. But her eyes held the same calculating gleam as her father's. "Vincent, it's wonderful to see you again," Richard said, extending his hand. "Sophia has been looking forward to this evening. She has some fascinating ideas about merging our company's social media divisions." "How romantic," Vincent muttered under his breath. Reluctantly shaking the older man's hand, Sophia moved closer, her perfume overwhelming in its intensity. "Vincent, I've prepared a presentation about our potential partnership, both business and personal." Of course, her fingers brushed his arm possessively. Alina paused near a potted palm, pretending to arrange the leaves while she listened. She had overheard enough conversations in this house to understand what was happening. Mr. Ashworth was being cornered into an arrangement he clearly despised, and her heart unexpectedly ached for him. "I'm not interested in any kind of partnership with Sterling Industries," Vincent said firmly. Trying to step back from Sophia's advances, Catherine's eyes flashed dangerously. "Vincent Alexander Ashworth, don't you dare embarrass our family in front of our guests. The merger with Sterling Industries will secure our position in the market for decades. And Sophia is perfect for you. Perfect for the company's stock price." "You mean?" Vincent shot back. Richard Sterling's expression hardened. "Now see here, young man. This union would benefit both our families tremendously. Your mother and I have already discussed the preliminary agreements. Vincent's voice rose slightly, causing nearby guests to turn and stare. "You've been making agreements about my life without consulting me?" Sophia stepped even closer, her voice dropping to what she probably thought was a seductive whisper. "Vincent, don't fight this. We could be so good together. Think of the empire we could build." Alina watched the scene, unfold with growing concern. Mr. Ashworth looked genuinely distressed, trapped between his mother's expectations and a future he clearly didn't want. She had always admired his business acumen and the way he treated his staff with respect. Unlike many wealthy people she had encountered, the crowd was beginning to murmur, sensing drama. Vincent could feel walls closing in around him as Sophia's hand found his arm again, her grip surprisingly strong. His mother's stern gaze promised consequences if he didn't comply, and Richard Sterling's smile had turned predatory. "I need some air," Vincent announced. Turning toward the terrace doors, "Don't you walk away from us," Catherine commanded. "This conversation is not over." Vincent stopped, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. The weight of expectations, the pressure of maintaining his company's position. and the suffocating presence of people who saw him only as a business opportunity crashed down on him all at once. Alina had moved closer, instinctively wanting to help somehow. She held her tray carefully, staying just within earshot but trying to remain unnoticed. "Vincent," Sophia purred. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Our engagement announcement will be in tomorrow's financial papers. Everything is already arranged." Something inside Vincent snapped. The word engagement felt like a death sentence. He looked around desperately, his eyes landing on Elena's concerned face. In that moment, she represented everything real and genuine in a room full of calculating players. Without thinking, without planning, without any consideration of consequences. Vincent strode over to Alina. Her eyes widened in surprise as he approached, the champagne glasses on her tray trembling slightly. "Excuse me, what are you doing?" Alina whispered, but Vincent was already reaching for her in front of his mother. Richard Sterling, Sophia, and half the social elite of the city. Vincent Ashworth cupped Alina Morales' face in his hands and kissed her with desperate intensity. The silver tray clattered to the floor, champagne glasses shattering against the marble as Elena's shocked gasp was. Muffled by his lips, the ballroom fell completely. Silent except for the tinkling of broken glass settling on the floor. Vincent pulled back slightly, his forehead resting against Elena's, both of them breathing heavily. "I'm sorry," he whispered, but his hands didn't leave her face. "I'm so sorry." Alina stared up at him, her heart hammering so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. The kiss had been unexpected, desperate, and somehow the most honest moment she had ever experienced in this house of carefully constructed facades. Catherine's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Vincent, what have you done?" Vincent slowly turned to face his mother, his arms sliding protectively around Elena's waist. She trembled against his side, clearly overwhelmed by the sudden attention of every person in the room. "I've chosen my own future," Vincent said, his voice steadier than he felt. "Mother, everyone, I'd like you to meet my girlfriend, Alina." The word girlfriend sent shockwaves through the crowd. Whispers erupted like wildfire as phones appeared, undoubtedly already posting to social media about the scandalous scene they had witnessed. Alina looked up at Vincent with a mixture of confusion and something that might have been gratitude. She didn't understand why he had done this, but she recognized the desperation in his eyes. Someone who had everything was still fighting to be free. Sophia Sterling's face had turned an alarming shade of red. "This is ridiculous." "She's your maid." "House manager," Alina corrected quietly. Finding her voice despite the chaos around them, Richard Sterling stepped forward, his business smile completely gone. "Vincent, surely you're joking? This is some kind of elaborate prank. I've never been more serious in my life," Vincent replied, pulling Alina closer to his side. He could feel her shaking, but she didn't pull away. The crowd continued to buzz with excitement and shock. Camera phones flashed as society reporters captured every moment of what would undoubtedly become tomorrow's headline story. Catherine's face was a mask of barely controlled fury. "We will discuss this privately. Everyone please continue enjoying the party. This is simply a misunderstanding." But Vincent knew there would be no taking this back. He had made his choice in a moment of desperation, and now both he and Alina would have to face the consequences together. As security began clearing up the broken glass and guests returned to their conversations with renewed enthusiasm for gossip, Vincent looked down at Alina. Her dark eyes were wide with uncertainty, but there was also something else there. Trust, perhaps. Or maybe just the recognition of two people who had both been pushed too far by circumstances beyond their control. "What happens now?" Alina whispered. Vincent's smile was rueful, but genuine. "Now we figure out how to survive what I just started." The first part of their story had begun with a desperate kiss and a lie that felt more honest than any truth Vincent had ever lived. The morning after the disastrous party, Alina sat in the staff kitchen with her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long since grown cold. She hadn't slept at all, replaying the events of the previous evening over and over in her mind. The kiss, the shocked faces, The way Vincent had called her his girlfriend in front of everyone who mattered in his world, her phone buzzed constantly with notifications. Somehow, her name had leaked to the press, and social media was exploding with speculation about the mysterious house manager who had captured the heart of one of the city's most eligible bachelors, Alina. "You need to see this," her younger brother, Diego, said, bursting through the kitchen door with his laptop. At 22, he was studying journalism while battling a chronic illness that required expensive treatments. Elena's job at the Ashworth mansion was the only thing keeping them afloat financially. He turned the screen toward her. Elena felt her stomach drop. The headline read, "Billionaire's Shocking Romance, Vincent Ashworth's Secret Love, Affair with His Maid Exposed." Below it was a photo of their kiss. "Captured perfectly by some guest's phone? They're calling you a gold digger," Diego said softly. His expression worried. "Some of these comments are really harsh." Before Alina could respond, James Parker, Vincent's assistant, appeared in the doorway. He looked as tired as Alina felt. His usually perfect appearance slightly disheveled. "Ms. Morales, Mr. Ashworth needs to speak with you immediately." Conference room 3. Elena's heart sank. This was it. She was going to be fired, probably sued for embarrassing the family, and she and Diego would lose everything. She followed James through the mansion's corridors. Ignoring the curious stares from other staff members, Vincent was pacing when she entered the conference room, his phone pressed to his ear. He looked up when she walked in, and she was surprised to see relief flood his features. "I'll call you back," he said into the phone, ending the call abruptly. "Alina, thank God. Are you all right? Have you seen the news?" She nodded mutely, unsure of what to say. He was supposed to be angry, supposed to blame her for not stopping him. Instead, he looked genuinely concerned about her well-being. "I'm sorry," Vincent continued, running his hands through his hair. "I'm so incredibly sorry for dragging you into this mess. I acted without thinking, and now you're paying the price." "Mr. Ashworth," Alina began formally, but he held up a hand. "Vincent, please, after last night. I think we can skip the formalities." He gestured to a chair at the conference table. "Sit down. We need to talk." Alina perched on the edge of the chair, ready to bolt if necessary. "Are you firing me?" "What? No?" Vincent looked genuinely shocked. "Alina, why would I fire you?" "This is my fault, not yours." Before she could respond, the conference room door burst open. Catherine Ashworth swept in like a hurricane, her expression thunderous. Behind her came Richard Sterling and Sophia, both looking equally furious. "Vincent, this farce ends now," Catherine announced. "The board is in emergency session. Stock prices are fluctuating wildly because of this scandal." "Richard." Sterling pointed an accusing finger at Alina. "This girl has obviously manipulated my future son-in-law. I demand she be removed from the premises immediately." Sophia's eyes were redrimmed with fury. "Daddy's right. She's clearly some kind of opportunist who seduced Vincent for money." Alina felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I never seduced anyone. I was just doing my job when Mr. Ashworth—" "When Mr. Ashworth what?" Catherine's voice was ice cold. "Decided to ruin his future and embarrass our family by kissing the help." "Enough." Vincent's voice cut through the room like a blade. He moved to stand beside Elena's chair, his presence protective. "Mother, Mr. Sterling, Sophia, I need to make something very clear. Alina and I are in love, and we have been for months. Last night was simply the first time I had the courage to make it public." Elena's eyes widened. He was doubling down on the lie, making it bigger and more elaborate. She opened her mouth to speak, but Vincent's hand touched her shoulder gently, a silent request for her to play along. "That's impossible," Sophia sputtered. "You barely know her." "She's just a servant." "She's the head house manager," Vincent corrected coldly. "And she has more integrity in her little finger than most people in our social circle have in their entire bodies." Catherine's laugh was bitter. "Vincent, be sensible. If you insist on this rebellion, at least choose someone appropriate. Someone from our world who understands the responsibilities that come with your position." Alina understands responsibility better than anyone I know, Vincent replied. She's worked 2 jobs to put her brother through college while managing my household flawlessly for 3 years. She's intelligent, compassionate, and real in a way that most people we know have forgotten how to be. Alina felt tears prick her eyes. Even if this was all an act, hearing someone defend her so passionately was overwhelming. Richard Sterling's face had turned purple. This is ridiculous. The merger between our companies depends on this marriage alliance. You're talking about throwing away millions of dollars for some romantic nonsense? Then maybe the companies shouldn't merge, Vincent said calmly. If a business deal can only survive through forced marriages, it's probably not a very good deal to begin with. The room fell silent, except for the ticking of an antique clock on the mantel. Alina could feel the tension crackling like electricity around them. Catherine's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Vincent, if you persist in this foolishness, there will be consequences. The board will not stand for this kind of instability. Let them try to remove me, Vincent replied. I own controlling interest in Ashworth Technologies. Good luck with that. Sophia suddenly burst into tears. This isn't fair. We were supposed to be perfect together. Our families, our backgrounds, everything matched. Everything except the fact that I don't love you, Vincent said, not unkindly but firmly. Sophia, you deserve someone who chooses you because they want to. It's not because they're forced to. Richard Sterling grabbed his daughter's arm. Come on, Sophia. We don't need to listen to this nonsense any longer. He turned to Vincent with cold fury. This isn't over, Ashworth. You've made a very powerful enemy today, after they left. Catherine remained, staring at her son with disappointment that cut deeper than anger. I raised you to be better than this, Vincent. To think beyond your own selfish desires. You raised me to be successful, Vincent replied quietly. And I am. But success without happiness is just expensive misery. Catherine's gaze shifted to Alina, who had remained silent throughout the entire confrontation. And you, girl, what do you have to say for yourself? Alina stood up slowly, finding strength she didn't know she possessed. Mrs. Ashworth, I never asked for any of this, but I won't apologize for your son's choices. I won't let you blame me for his courage to live his own life. Something flickered in Catherine's eyes. Surprise, perhaps even a grudging respect. We'll see how long your courage lasts when the real pressure begins, she said before sweeping out of the room. When they were finally alone, Vincent slumped into a chair, the weight of the confrontation settling on his shoulders. Alina, I need to ask you something. I need you to know you can say no without any consequences to your job. Alina sat back down, her heart racing. What is it? I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend. Really pretend, I mean? Public appearances, family events, the whole thing. Just for a few months, until the pressure dies down and I can figure out a way to handle the business situation without anyone getting hurt. Pretend to be your girlfriend, Alina repeated slowly. I know how it sounds. I know it's crazy and unfair to ask. But Alina, if you help me with this, I'll pay off your brother's medical bills. All of them. And I'll set up a college fund for him too. Alina's breath caught. Diego's treatments cost more than she made in 2 years. The offer was beyond generous. It was life-changing. But something else made her hesitate. Why me? She asked. You could hire an actress, someone trained for this kind of thing. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Because when I kissed you last night, it was the first honest thing I'd done in years. And because when I defended you just now, I realized I wasn't entirely acting. The admission hung between them like a bridge neither was sure they should cross. Alina thought about Diego, about the bills that kept piling up, about the way Vincent had protected her from his family's cruelty. She thought about the genuine kindness he'd always shown her, the way he remembered her birthday and asked about her brother's health. What would this pretend relationship involve exactly? She asked. Vincent's shoulders relaxed slightly. Public appearances. Family dinners? Maybe a few charity events. We'd need to make it look real. But I swear to you, Alina, I would never take advantage of the situation. You'd have your own room, your own space, your own life. This would just be ... performance. Alina looked at this man who had just risked everything to avoid a marriage he didn't want, who had defended her against people who could destroy her with a word, who was offering to change her entire life in exchange for helping him reclaim his own. "Okay," she said quietly. "I'll do it." Vincent's smile was the first genuinely happy expression she'd seen from him since she'd known him. "Thank you, Alina. I promise you won't regret this." As Alina left the conference room to return to her duties, she wondered if she was making the biggest mistake of her life or taking the first step towards something she'd never dared to dream of. Outside the mansion, photographers had already gathered, waiting for another glimpse of the unlikely couple that had shocked high society. The real performance was about to begin. But Alina couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere between the lies and the pretending, something genuine was starting to grow. Neither of them noticed Maria Santos, Elena's best friend and fellow staff member, listening from the corridor. Maria's expression was worried as she pulled out her phone to call Thomas Gray, the investigative journalist who had been asking questions about the Ashworth family's business dealings. The fake romance was about to become much more complicated than either Vincent or Alina imagined. 3 months into their fake relationship, Alina found herself standing in front of a full-length mirror in a designer boutique, wearing a gown that cost more than her annual salary. The emerald silk hugged her curves perfectly, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged in Vincent's world. "You look absolutely stunning," Vincent said from behind her, his voice carrying a warmth that had become increasingly genuine over the past weeks. Their pretend relationship had evolved into something neither of them had expected. Alina met his eyes in the mirror, her heart skipping as it did every time he looked at her that way. "Are you sure this isn't too much for tonight's charity gala?" "Nothing is too much for you," he replied softly, stepping closer. "Alina, there's something I need to tell you." Before he could continue, his phone rang sharply. The caller ID showed James Parker. Vincent's expression immediately shifted to concern. "Vincent, we have a problem." James's voice was tight with urgency. "Thomas Gray from the Financial Tribune is here with some very serious allegations. He's demanding an interview about Alina and some documents he claims to have." Alina felt the blood drain from her face. Thomas Gray was the investigative journalist who had been digging into Vincent's business dealings for months. She had hoped their fake relationship would be beneath his notice, but apparently she was wrong. "We'll be right there," Vincent said, ending the call. He turned to Alina, taking her hands in his. "Whatever this is about, we'll face it together." When they arrived at the mansion, they found Thomas Gray waiting in the main parlor with Maria Santos, Elena's best friend. Maria's face was streaked with tears, and she couldn't meet Elena's eyes. "Maria? What's going on?" Alina asked, confusion and dread warring in her chest. Thomas Gray, thin man with sharp eyes and a predatory smile, stood up from his chair. "Miss Morales, thank you for coming. I've been investigating your relationship with Mr. Ashworth, and I've discovered some very interesting information." Vincent stepped protectively in front of Alina. "Mr. Gray, if you have questions about our relationship, you can direct them to me. But this is about Ms. Morales specifically," Thomas replied, pulling out a tablet. "You see, Elena Morales isn't exactly who she claims to be." Elena's heart stopped. After all these months of pretending to be someone she wasn't for Vincent, was her real past about to destroy everything? Thomas continued, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "Elena Morales is actually Elena Valdez, daughter of Roberto Valdez, the former CEO of Valdez Industries, a company that went bankrupt 5 years ago amid accusations of fraud and embezzlement." The room fell silent except for Maria's quiet sobbing. Vincent turned to look at Alina, his face unreadable. "That's not the whole story," Elena whispered, her voice barely audible, "isn't it?" Thomas pressed. "Your father stole millions from investors before fleeing the country. You and your brother changed your names and have been living under false identities ever since. How do we know you haven't been planning to con Mr. Ashworth from the beginning?" "Because it's not true," Alina said, finding her strength. "My father was framed by his business partner. He died trying to prove his innocence." Vincent remained silent, processing this revelation. The woman he had fallen in love with had been keeping secrets as big as his own, Thomas pulled up more documents on his tablet. There's more. Ms. Santos here has been feeding me information about your fake relationship for weeks. She recorded conversations, took photographs, documented everything. She was being paid by Richard Sterling to prove that your romance was a sham. Alina felt the world tilt around her. She looked at Maria, her best friend of 10 years, the woman who had been like a sister to her. Maria, how could you? Maria finally looked up, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, Alina. I'm so sorry. Mr. Sterling offered me $50,000 for my mother's cancer treatments. I needed the money so badly. I thought if I could just prove the relationship was fake, no one would get hurt, but people are getting hurt, Alina said softly. I'm getting hurt. Vincent had been listening to the exchange, his business mind working through the implications. Finally, he stepped forward. Mr. Gray, I assume you want something in exchange for not publishing this story. Thomas smiled coldly. Smart man. I want an exclusive interview about your business practices. There are rumors about some questionable deals with overseas companies, tax avoidance schemes, worker exploitation. Give me full access to your records, and I'll consider keeping Ms. Valdez's secrets. Absolutely not, Vincent said immediately. Then I'll publish everything tomorrow morning. The fake relationship, her real identity, the whole sordid tale. Your stock prices will crash, and Ms. Valdez will be exposed as a fraud. Alina felt the walls closing in around her. Everything she had built, everything she had tried to protect, was crumbling. Worse, she was about to destroy Vincent too. I'll leave, she said quietly. Mr. Gray, if I disappear, you have no story. Vincent can say we broke up and everything goes back to normal. Alina, no, Vincent said firmly. You're not running away from this. It's the only way, Alina replied, tears starting to fall. Vincent, this was always temporary anyway. We both knew that. Vincent turned to face her fully, his gray eyes intense. Not for me. Alina, these past 3 months haven't been fake for me. Not for a single day? Alina's breath caught. I feel sorry for you, Vincent replied, taking her hands. I'm saying them because I love you. The real you. Alina Valdez, Alina Morales, whoever you are, I love all of it. Thomas Gray laughed harshly. How touching. Very romantic. But it doesn't change the facts. You have until tomorrow morning to decide, Mr. Ashworth. After Thomas and Maria left, Alina collapsed onto the sofa, overwhelmed by the evening's revelations. Vincent sat beside her. How Roberto Valdez had built a successful construction company from nothing. How his business partner, Carlos Mendoza, had been secretly siphoning money and falsifying records. How, when the fraud was discovered, Carlos had disappeared with the missing funds and left Roberto to take the blame. He spent every penny we had. Trying to prove his innocence, Alina whispered. We lost our house, our cars, everything. He died of a heart attack 2 years later, still fighting to clear his name. Vincent held her tighter. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was afraid, Alina admitted. Afraid you'd think I was after your money like everyone said. Afraid you'd see me differently, Alina? Look at me, Vincent said, tilting her chin up. I don't care about your past. I don't care about your real name or what your father did or didn't do. I care about the woman who worked 16-hour days to pay for her brother's medical treatments. I care about the person who remembered my assistant's birthday when I forgot. I care about the woman who stood up to my mother and defended herself with more grace than I've ever seen. But Thomas Gray is going to destroy both of us, Alina said. Vincent was quiet for a moment. Then a slow smile spread across his face. Not if we destroy him first. The next morning, Vincent called a press conference. Alina stood beside him in front of the Ashworth Technologies building as reporters gathered. Cameras rolling. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming, Vincent began. I have several announcements to make. First, I want to address the rumors about my relationship with Alina Valdez. Alina squeezed his hand as he used her real name publicly. For the first time, Alina and I began our relationship under unusual circumstances. But what has grown between us is completely real. I love this woman, and I'm proud to stand beside her. A reporter shouted from the crowd. What about the allegations that she's been deceiving you about her identity? Alina has been honest with me about everything that matters, Vincent replied. Her father, Roberto Valdez, was a good man who was wronged by a corrupt business partner. I've spent the last 3 months having the case reinvestigated, and I have proof that Roberto Valdez was innocent of all charges. Alina gasped, staring up at Vincent in shock. He had been investigating her father's case. Vincent continued. I'm also announcing that Ashworth Technologies will be establishing the Roberto Valdez Foundation for Business Ethics and Anti-Corruption Efforts. Alina will be heading this foundation. What about Thomas Gray's allegations about your business practices? Another reporter called out. Vincent smiled. Mr. Gray will not be publishing any stories about my personal or professional life. It seems he's been engaging in some questionable journalism practices himself, paying sources for false information, hacking private communications, and attempting extortion. I believe he'll be quite busy with his own legal troubles. Thomas Gray was indeed arrested later that day on multiple charges. It turned out Vincent had been one step ahead of him the entire time, documenting every illegal action the journalist had taken. 6 months later, Alina stood in the same garden where she had first worked as a house manager, but this time she wore a wedding dress that had belonged to Vincent's grandmother. The ceremony was small and intimate, attended only by people who truly mattered to them. Diego, healthy and thriving thanks to Vincent's support, walked her down the aisle. Maria, who had earned forgiveness through her genuine remorse and testimony against Thomas Gray, stood as Alina's maid of honor. Even Catherine Ashworth was present. Having gradually come to respect Alina's strength and intelligence, she would never admit it publicly. But she had grown genuinely fond of her daughter Law, as Vincent lifted Alina's veil and looked into her eyes. He whispered, "No more pretending. No more pretending," Alina agreed. Just before he kissed her with all the love that had grown from their desperate beginning, Dr. Rebecca Hamilton, the therapist who had helped Vincent work through his family issues, watched from the audience with a satisfied smile. Sometimes the most unexpected love stories were the ones that lasted forever. Years later, when people asked Alina about her fairy tale romance, she would always smile and say that the best love stories weren't about perfect people finding each other. They were about real people choosing to build something beautiful together. One honest moment at a time. The Roberto Valdez Foundation went on to help dozens of wrongfully accused business owners clear their names. Vincent and Alina had 3 children who grew up knowing that love was about truth, courage, and standing by the people who matter most. And in the end, the Millionaire CEO and the house manager who had started with a desperate kiss lived happily ever after, proving that sometimes the most unlikely beginnings lead to the most extraordinary endings. The end.